What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the potential of Stellar Blade 2, amongst other things. So we actually got, and I'm not even sure what to call this. It's not a rumor. It's more of they are aware of what Stellar Blade has done. They kind of formally announced their next game. We had already kind of talked about it. Remember when on their website it had their first game, it had Stellar Blade in the middle, and then it had a new IP on the far right side, and it was going to be a mobile game as well as a console game. They gave it a name, and they basically talked a little bit about it, but then they went into some details on Stellar Blade. So in terms of that mystery game, it's called Project Witches, and it's planned to release in 2027 or later. It's going to come across console, PC, and mobile with crossplay amongst them. And it's another new IP, and they're talking about like subculture, next generation mega subculture, and they liken it maybe to the Genshin Impacts of the world. So that's pretty exciting. I mean, I'm not super into those games, but it's good to see what they're trying to do, and they kind of explain it as well. They want to be a team that constantly is making new IPs so they don't have to rely on just the same old stuff. And I actually give them a lot of respect for that. They're right, and when they say a lot of other publishers don't do that, that's kind of accurate. And then you keep scrolling down, they finally do mention Stellar Blade. They say, for Stellar Blade, we have plans to introduce new gameplay elements, including downloadable content releases, a PC version, and new IP collaborations. So that is going back to what they've talked about with that mobile game that they do. They want to have like the outfits and maybe even characters kind of cross over. So that's, I guess, what they're talking about with that one. Then they say AAA console titles such as God of War and Final Fantasy have shown tremendous potential, selling over 66 and 185 million. There are many precedents for AAA titles to evolve into IP franchises by extending their lifespan through a series of high-quality sequels and maintaining a long-form monetization base. As a result, we are exploring the possibility of a PC version of Stellar Blade and a sequel. So there you go. That's kind of their model of what they're going to be doing in the future. So what's locked in, is the new game. And the reason I spend so much time talking about this new game, I mean, maybe we'll cover it. Maybe I'll end up playing it, in a couple of years from now. But that seems to be the all hands on deck thing. I believe they're like staffing up for it. So they're hiring specifically for that project. I wouldn't be shocked if they were able to do more than one thing at a time, but maybe a little bit slower, maybe kind of focus on one thing at a time in terms of like a big team. So if you were to do a Stellar Blade 2, I don't think you're going to get it, honestly, probably for 5-6 years. That would be my prediction right about now, where, if you maybe give them 3 or so years per thing, again, maybe you can do it at the same time. So maybe you're looking at 4 or 5 years. But I think a couple things. Stellar Blade 2 will happen. I mean, we've heard some things in terms of the sales. We haven't necessarily gotten figures, but I do believe they said somewhere else that it has exceeded expectations, the sales. So I do think it did well for them. I'm sure they made their money back, and I do feel quite confident in getting a second game. As for the stuff coming to the first game, well, we've talked about numerous times what kind of DLC or what they could do. Again, the boss rush and just different things, I would say, revolving around the gameplay and maybe outfits, right? Those are probably good ideas. And then the PC thing, and honestly, I think the PC thing is, number one, just a matter of time. I think you'll eventually get the PC maybe 6 months later, maybe a year later, right after it's been on PS5. But I also think it would stand a good shot at doing quite well. You're seeing Ghost of Tsushima that's doing really, really well on PC 4 years after the game comes out. And I think it just speaks to the quality of the game. And I do think Stellar Blade, again, as we've talked about many times, right? I think it is a very good game. I think specifically the gameplay, I do think the PC crowd would eat up that gameplay quite well. So I wouldn't be shocked if you put on PC and it did 500,000 to 1 million easily. So I think that's just like inevitable. I think they'll eventually do that no matter what. It's just, again, do you do it a year later? Do you do it 6 months later or whatever? But I do think they eventually do it. So we'll keep our eyes on it. But I believe a Stellar Blade 2 is going to end up happening. It's just you might have to be quite patient. You might have to wait for the PS6, and maybe it comes out multi-platform. Maybe Sony swoops in again, whatever ends up happening. But I do think you probably got to wait roughly half a decade. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.